We're talking about transitioning the kingdom essentially from David to Solomon. That's what we talked about last week, how David ruled Solomon as his heir, as opposed to Adonijah, who was trying to make a fuss. This week, we'll continue in that and show the beginning of Solomon's kingdom. And then from there next week, we'll really get into how that changed the world and the course of world history. All right, but we want to start with First Chronicles in the 28th chapter. I'm going to start with verse 1. And David assembled all the princes of Israel, the princes of the tribes, and the captains of the companies that ministered to the king by course, and the captains over thousands, and captains over the hundreds, and the stewards over all the substance and possession of the king and of his sons, with the officers, and with the mighty men, and with all the valiant men unto Jerusalem. Right, so called in everybody. Verse 2. Then David the king stood up upon his feet and said, Hear me, my brethren, and my people. As for me, I had in my heart to build a house of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and for the footstool of our God, and had made ready for the building. But God said unto me, Thou shalt not build a house for my name, because thou hast been a man of war and hast shed blood. Right? So God said, look, your hands are too bloody to build my house. But, verse 4, Howbeit the Lord God of Israel chose me before all the house of my father to be king over Israel forever. For he had chosen Judah to be the ruler, and the house of Judah, the house of my father. And among the sons of my father, he liked me to make me king over all Israel, right? Because David's heart was true with the Lord. And all the wars that he fought were just wars. They were honest wars. They were righteous wars. Verse 5. And of all my sons, for the Lord had given me many sons, he had chosen Solomon, my son, to sit upon the throne of the kingdom of the Lord over Israel. All right. So God said, look, you're not going to be able to build the temple because your hands are too bloody. But your son, he can do it for me. Verse 6. And he said unto me, Solomon thy son, he shall build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I will be his father. Verse 7. Moreover, I will establish his kingdom forever, if he be constant to do my commandments and my judgments, as at this day. Verse 8. Now therefore in the sight of all Israel, the congregation of the Lord, and in the audience of our God, keep and seek for all the commandments of the Lord your God, that ye may possess this good land, and leave it for an inheritance for your children after you forever. Verse 9. And thou, Solomon my son, know thou the God of thy father, and serve him with a perfect heart and with a willing mind. For the Lord searcheth all hearts, and understandeth all the imaginations of the thoughts. If thou seek him, he will be found of thee. But if thou forsake him, he will cast thee off forever. And that's still the same way that God operates today. Verse 10. Take heed now, for the Lord hath chosen thee to build a house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it. Verse 11. Then David gave to Solomon his son the pattern of the porch, and the houses thereof, and of the treasuries thereof, and of the upper chambers thereof, and of the inner parlors thereof, and of the place of the mercy seat. Right, so David is giving Solomon the blueprints to build his house. Even though David himself couldn't do it, he still had the blueprints. Verse 12. And the pattern of all that he had by the spirit of the courts of the house of the Lord, and of all the chambers round about, and of the treasuries of the house of God, and of the treasuries of the dedicated things. Right, all the holy instruments. Also for the courses of the priests of the Levites, and for all the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and for the vessels of the service of the house of the Lord. He gave of gold by weight for things of gold, for all instruments of manner of service. Silver also for all instruments of silver by weight, and for all instruments of every kind of service. Right, all this stuff made out of gold, made out of silver. Very expensive equipment. Verse 15. Even the weight for the candlesticks of gold, and for their lamps of gold by weight for every candlestick, and for the lamps thereof, and for the candlesticks of silver by weight, both for the candlestick and also for the lamps thereof, according to the use of every candlestick. And by weight he gave gold for the tables of shewbread, for every table, and likewise silver for the tables of silver. Also pure gold for the flesh hooks, and the bowls, and the cups, and for the golden basins he gave gold by weight for every basin, and likewise silver by weight for every basin of silver. Right, so David is like, look, I can't build these things, but I set aside this amount of gold for all these things, this amount of silver for all these things, etc. Verse 18. And for the altar of incense refined gold by weight, and gold for the pattern of the chariot of the cherubims that spread out their wings and covered the ark of the covenant of the Lord. Verse 19. All this, said David, the Lord made me understand in writing by his hand upon me even all the works of this pattern. Verse 20. And David said to Solomon his son, be strong and of good courage, and do it. Fear not, nor be dismayed. For the Lord God, even my God, will be with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee, until thou hast finished all the work for the service of the house of the Lord. And behold, the courses of the priests and the Levites, even they shall be with thee for all the service of the house of God. And there shall be with thee for all manner of workmanship every willing skillful man, for any manner of service. Also the priests and all the people will be holy at thy commandment. Right. So David said, look, I provided all the men who will do this work. You just have to make them do it. You just have to put it in the process. You have to begin the process. All right. So from there, we're going to jump back over to 1 Kings chapter 2. Because you get to a certain point in the Chronicles where it starts talking about all the same things as the Kings talk about, right? One might have a little bit more detail, but it's talking about the same historical events. 1 Kings 2, starting at verse 1. And this is essentially the same thing, but in less detail. David talks to his son Solomon, and then we'll see where Solomon goes from there. 1 Kings 2, starting with 1. Now the days of David drew nigh that he should die, and he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong therefore, and show thyself a man. And keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself. All right, so that's the way that you be a man of God, as you do everything that God told you to do. All right, as it says right here, as was written in the law of Moses. Verse 4. That the Lord may continue his word which he spake concerning me, saying, if thy children take heed to their way, to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not fail thee, said he, a man on the throne of Israel. Right? So God made that covenant with David. He said, look, if you keep my commandments, then all your children, and if they keep my commandments as well, there will always be a king of your lineage over the children of Israel. All right, so David is saying, continue that covenant. Verse 5. Moreover, thou knowest also what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, and what he did to the two captains of the host of Israel, unto Abner the son of Ner, and unto Amasai the son of Jether, whom he slew, and shed the blood of war in peace. Right? And as we went through the history of David, we talked about how bloodthirsty Joab was, and all the sons of Zeruiah, and put the blood of war upon his girdle that was about his loins, and in his shoes that were on his feet. Do therefore according to thy wisdom, and let not his whorehead go down to the grave in peace. Right? So David's saying, don't let his old age, that's what a whorehead is. It's white hair, right? Don't let it go down to the grave in peace. But show kindness unto the sons of Barzillai the Gileadite, and let them be of those that eat at thy table. Right? That was the man who had helped David when he was fleeing from Absalom, his son. For so they came to me when I fled because of Absalom thy brother. And behold, thou hast with thee Shimei the son of Gera, a Benjamite of Bahurim, which cursed me with a grievous curse in the day when I went to Mahanaim. But he came down to meet me at Jordan, and I swear to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put thee to death with the sword. Now therefore hold him not guiltless, for thou art a wise man, and knowest what thou oughtest to do unto him. But his whorehead bring thou down to the grave with blood. Right? So that guy who always cursed David said, I'm not going to do anything to you. But he ain't saying nothing about Solomon. All right? This is verse 10. So David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And the days that David reigned over Israel were 40 years. 7 years reigned he in Hebron, and 33 years reigned he in Jerusalem. Then sat Solomon upon the throne of David his father, and his kingdom was established greatly. All right. Verse 13. And Adonijah the son of Haggith came to Bathsheba the mother of Solomon. And she said, comest thou peaceably? And he said, peaceably. He said, moreover, I have somewhat to say unto thee. And she said, say on. Right? Because this was the pretender to the throne who tried to take it before David give it to Solomon. And he said, Thou knowest that the kingdom was mine, and that all Israel set their faces on me, that I should reign. Howbeit the kingdom is turned about, and has become my brother's, for it was his from the Lord. So even Adonijah is admitting, look, God is on Solomon's side. Verse 16. And now I ask one petition of thee, deny me not. She said unto him, Say on. And he said, Speak, I pray thee, unto Solomon the king, for he will not say thee nay. Right? He's not going to tell his mother no. That he give me Abishag the Shunammite to wife. And Bathsheba said, Well, I will speak for thee unto the king. She's like, Well, I can't promise anything, but I'll put a good word in. Verse 19. Bathsheba therefore went unto King Solomon to speak unto him for Adonijah. And the king rose up to meet her and bowed himself unto her, and sat down on his throne, and caused a seat to be set for the king's mother. And she sat on his right hand. Then she said, I desire one small petition of thee, I pray thee. Say me not nay. And the king said unto her, Ask on, my mother, for I will not say thee nay. And she said, That Abishag the Shunammite be given unto Adonijah thy brother to wife. And King Solomon answered and said unto his mother, And why dost thou ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my elder brother, even for him, and for Abiathar the priest, and for Joab the son of Zeruiah. Right, so Solomon's got this list of people that he's got to deal with before he can really establish his kingdom the way that it's meant to. All right. Then King Solomon sware by the Lord, saying, God do so to me, and more also, if Adonijah have not spoken this word against his own life. Right. And Abiathar the priest and Joab the son of Zeruiah, those were the ones who were having the feast with Adonijah and were going along with his plot, with his plan. And I believe Abishag is the one who got close to David in his old age. Let me see real quick. Yes, Abishag was that woman who got, or that virgin who got close to David in his old age, but never had sex with him. What verse? We're at verse 24. Now therefore, as the Lord liveth, which hath established me and set me on the throne of David my father, and who hath made me a house as he promised, Adonijah shall be put to death this day. Verse 25. And King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he fell upon him that he died. Right, so Benaiah killed Adonijah. Verse 26. And unto Abiathar the priest said the king, Get thee to Anathoth unto thine own fields, for thou art worthy of death. But I will not at this time put thee to death, because thou bearest the ark of the Lord God before David my father, and because thou hast been afflicted in all wherein my father was afflicted. Right, so he said, Look, you were always loyal to my father, so I'm not going to kill you, but you better get out of town, because you were supporting that pretender to the throne. Verse 27. So Solomon thrust out Abiathar from being priest unto the Lord, that he might fulfill the word of the Lord which he spake concerning the house of Eli in Shiloh, that prophecy that we read all the way back when we was reading about Samuel. Verse 28. Then tidings came to Joab, for Joab had turned after Adonijah, though he turned not after Absalom. And Joab fled unto the tabernacle of the Lord and caught hold on the horns of the altar. And see, that's what Adonijah did, as we read last week. Whenever these men find out that they're going to be put to death, they run to the altar and hold on to the altar, because you can't put unclean blood on the altar. Right? You can't put man's blood on the altar. Verse 29. And it was told King Solomon that Joab was fled into the tabernacle of the Lord, and behold, he is by the altar. Then Solomon sent Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, saying, Go, fall upon him. And Benaiah came to the tabernacle of the Lord and said unto him, Thus said the king, Come forth. And he said, Nay, but I will die here. And Benaiah brought the king word again, saying, Thus said Joab, and thus he answered me. Right, so Joab won't come forward off the altar to be killed in an honorable way. He said, No, kill me right here on the altar. And the king said unto him, Do as he had said, and fall upon him, and bury him, that thou mayest take away the innocent blood which Joab shed from me, and from the house of my father. And the Lord shall return his blood upon his own head, who fell upon two men more righteous and better than he, and slew them with the sword. My father David, not knowing thereof, to wit, Abner the son of Ner, captain of the host of Israel, and Amasa the son of Jether, captain of the house of Judah. Their blood shall therefore return upon the head of Joab, and upon the head of his seed forever. But upon David, and upon his seed, and upon his house, and upon his throne, shall there be peace forever from the Lord. So Benaiah the son of Jehoiada went up and fell upon him, and slew him. And he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. All right, so as you see there, Solomon saying, look, the curse ain't going to be on us because this unclean blood gets spilt there. It's not going to be on us. It's going to be on Joab's family, not the family of David. All right, verse 35. And the king put Benaiah the son of Jehoiada in his room over the host, right, over the army. And Zadok the priest did the king put in the room of Abiathar, right, chief priest. Verse 36. And the king sent and called for Shimei, and said unto him, build thee a house in Jerusalem, and dwell there, and go not forth thence any whither, right? Don't go nowhere. For it shall be that on the day thou goest out, and passest over the brook Kidron, thou shalt know for certain that thou shalt surely die. Thy blood shall be upon thine own head. And y'all know we like to look at maps here. And brook Kidron, I'm pretty sure, obviously it's in a different region. That's why he's saying, look, if you go past this certain region, then you'll be put to death. So he said, build a house in Jerusalem. We see Jerusalem right here. We pointed that out before. Let's see if we see the brook Kidron. We see the Jabbok, the Yarnuk, the Kishon. It might be the same as the Yarkon here, which is in the land of Ephraim. And of course, here's the Jordan down through here. But anyway, let's go back. Thy blood shall be upon thine own head. Verse 38. And Shimei said unto the king, the saying is good. As my lord the king hath said, so will thy servant do. And Shimei dwelt in Jerusalem many days, right? So he didn't have to leave the city for nothing. Verse 39. And it came to pass at the end of 3 years that two of the servants of Shimei ran away unto Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath. And we see Gath here in the valley between Philistia and Judah. We've talked about Gath a lot on here. All right. And they told Shimei, saying, behold, thy servants be in Gath. And Shimei arose and sat on his ass and went to Gath to Achish to seek his servants. And Shimei went and brought his servants from Gath. And it was told Solomon that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and was come again. And the king sent and called for Shimei and said unto him, did I not make thee to swear by the Lord, and protested unto thee, saying, know for certain on the day that thou goest out and walkest abroad any whither, that thou shalt surely die? And thou sayest unto me, the word that I have heard is good. Why then hast thou not kept the oath of the Lord, and the commandment that I have charged thee with? The king said moreover to Shimei, thou knowest all the wickedness which thine heart is privy to, that thou didst to David my father. Therefore the Lord shall return thy wickedness upon thy own head. And King Solomon shall be blessed, and the throne of David shall be established before the Lord forever. So the king commanded Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, which went out and fell upon him, that he died, and the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. So he removed all threats to the throne. And in certain cases, like in the case of Shimei, he said, look, I'm going to make a deal. I'm not going to kill you unless you do such and such. And obviously he did. So yeah, if the brook Kidron is in between Jerusalem and Gath, then it must be one of these that we see dotted on here. All right. Let's go to chapter 3 in the book of 1 Kings. I only want to read through chapter 4 and maybe where the temple is established. 1 Kings 3, starting with verse 1. And Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had made an end of building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall of Jerusalem round about. Excuse me. Only the people sacrificed in high places because there was no house built unto the name of the Lord until those days. Right? So, as we see, this is one of the first of many heathen women, strange women that Solomon marries. But he set her aside until after he had done all the work the Lord had needed him to do. Verse 3. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places, right? And everywhere that was not the temple. That's, as it said in verse 3, or rather in verse 2, that they sacrificed wherever in those days. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Solomon offer upon that altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, ask what I shall give thee. All right, Gibeon is right here in Benjamin. Let's go back. So Solomon is visited by the Lord in this dream. Verse 6, and Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness. Thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. Right? So he's saying, look, I don't know all the ways of war like my father knew. I'm not as wise as my father was. Verse 8. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? Verse 10. And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thy enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. And that's what James talks about when he says to pray aright. All right. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and an understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. Solomon was one of a kind when it comes to all these things: understanding, knowledge, wisdom, riches. All right, verse 13. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings, and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. Verse 16. Then came there 2 women that were harlots unto the king, and stood before him. And the one woman said, O my Lord, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the 3rd day after that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also, and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, save we 2 in the house. Right? That's why it said that they were harlots, because like, where are the dads at? Where are the fathers of these children? They don't know. All right. It was just them 2 in the house with the 2 babies. Verse 19. And this woman's child died in the night because she overlaid it, right? She rolled over on her baby and killed it. Verse 20. And she arose at midnight and took my son from beside me while thy handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And then she swapped the babies. And when I rose in the morning to give my child suck, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son, which I did bear. And the other woman said, Nay, but the living is my son, and the dead is thy son. And this said, No, but the dead is thy son, and the living is my son. Thus they spake before the king. Verse 23. Then said the king, the one said, This is my son that liveth, and thy son is the dead. The other saith, Nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is the living. And the king said, Bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, Divide the living child in 2, and give half to the one and half to the other. Then spake the woman whose living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divide it. Right? So the wickedness that was in the heart of that woman. It's crazy. Like, well, that's how you know that her son was already dead. She's like, well, kill this one too. I don't care. Verse 27. And the king answered and said, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to do judgment. Right. So that's just one example of Solomon's wisdom, Solomon's righteous judgment. All right. And reading chapter 4, just to get a little bit more on this, and then we'll skip around and save a certain section for next week. All right. For this 1 Kings 4, starting with 1. So the king was over all Israel, and these were the princes which he had: Azariah the son of Zadok the priest. And when they say says princes, it just means noble men, right? Men who are counted with nobility. Azariah the son of Zadok the priest, Eli-Hareph and Ahiah the sons of Shisha scribes, Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud the recorder, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over the host, right? He was a captain, and Zadok and Abiathar were the priests, and Azariah the son of Nathan was over the officers, and Zabad the son of Nathan was principal officer, and the king's friend and Ahishar was over the household, and Adoniram the son of Abda was over the tribute, right? So he was the tax collector. Verse 7, and Solomon had 12 officers over all Israel, which provided victuals for the king and his household. Each man his month in a year made provision, right? So these are the guys who literally went out and collected the taxes, the officers who were over each tribe. And these are their names: the son of Hur in Mount Ephraim, the son of Dekar in Makaz, and in Shaalbim, and Beth Shemesh, and Elam Beth Anan, the son of Hesed in Arabah. To him pertains Sokoh, and all the land of Hefer, the son of Abinadab, in all the region of Dor, which had Tephath, the daughter of Solomon to wife, and Ba'anah, the son of Ahilud. To him pertained Tanakh and Megiddo, and all Bethshean, which is by Zartana beneath Jezreel, right? So now we're getting into, at first I mentioned the Mount of Ephraim, but now we're getting into parts of Manasseh. Here's where you see Dor and Yagnin, Megiddo. All right. Bethshan, which is by Zartana beneath Jezreel, from Bethshean to Abel Mahola, even unto the place that is beyond Jokneam, the son of Geber in Ramoth Gilead. To him pertain the towns of Jair, the son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead. To him also pertain the region of Argob, which is in Bashan. 80 cities with walls and brazen bars, right? So that's 60 cities. All right, and we see Ramoth Gilead over here. Excuse me. Bad circle. Right there. All of this is Gilead. All this east of the Jordan, I should say. And all this is Bashan. All right, Mahanaim down here. So all of Gilead and Bashan belong to this man, the son of Geber. Verse 14. Henadad, the son of Edo, had Mahanaim. Okay, so there we see Mahanaim. Ahimaaz was in Naphtali. He also took Basmath, the daughter of Solomon to wife. Ba'anah, the son of Hushai, was in Asher and in Aloth. So here we see Asher and Naphtali up here. Jehoshaphat, the son of Peruah, in Issachar. Shimeon, the son of Elah, in Benjamin. Geber, the son of Uri, was in the country of Gilead, in the country of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan. He was the only officer which was in the land. So you had Uri over there, east of the Jordan, as well as the son of Geber, east of Jordan. And obviously we see Benjamin right here, and Issachar up here. So let's get back to it. Verse 20. Judah and Israel were many, as the sand which is by the sea in multitude, eating and drinking, and making merry. And Solomon reigned over all kingdoms, from the river of the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt. Okay, all kingdoms from the river unto the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt. They brought presents and served Solomon all the days of his life. So when it's talking about that region, let's pull out this again because we got another map here. As it says right here, Israel's golden age. That's what it's called on this map. As you see from the river Euphrates, that's when it says the river. That's what it's talking about. And notice it said the border of Egypt, right? When you start going into the Sinai Peninsula, all that's Egypt. And Solomon actually made a league with the Egyptians by taking the daughter of Pharaoh to wife. All right, that's an alliance. So Solomon even had influence over here in Egypt. And we'll read more about his influence next week whenever we start talking about Tyre and Zidon. All right, verse 22. And Solomon's provisions for one day was 30 measures of fine flour, and 80 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen, 20 oxen of the pastures, and 100 sheep, beside harts and roebucks, right? That's deer, and fallow deer, and fatted fowl, right? So all these different animals, all this flour coming in to do these sacrifices and to feed his house. For he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Tifsah even to Azah, over all the kings on this side the river, and he had peace on all sides round about him. Right, so David is the one who secured that peace, but Solomon actually gets to experience it. It's that all kings on this side of the river. So that's all this too. That's all this. All right. And Judah and Israel dwelt safely, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And it seems like I'm saying this every week now, because we're reading the scripture that says this every week now. From Dan to Beersheba, that's an expression that the scripture uses to say all of Israel. All right, let's go to, it's actually this one that I'm looking for. Here you see, where's Dan at? Dan's up here in the far north of Israel. Beersheba is down here in the south of Israel. All right, from Dan to Beersheba. That's what it means when you say from Dan to Beersheba, all of Israel. All right, let's go back. All the days of Solomon, verse 26. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. And those officers provided victual for King Solomon, and for all that came unto the King Solomon's table, every man in his month. They lacked nothing. All right. So it's important to note of all this taxes that Solomon is imposing on the people. All right. It's fine during the days of Solomon, but it kind of blows up after him. So keep that in mind. Verse 28. Barley also and straw for the horses, and dromedaries brought they unto the place where the officers were, every man according to his charge. Excuse me. Verse 29. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, and largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country, and all the wisdom of Egypt. Right? The wisdom of King Solomon is more than any people of that time. All right, any people even today. All right, verse 31. For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman, and Chalcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol. And his fame was in all nations round about. And he spake 3,000 proverbs. All right, so the book of Proverbs, that's only some of them. And his songs were 1,005. So the Song of Solomon, that's just one song. He had 1,005 songs that he wrote. And he spake of trees, from the cedar tree that is in Lebanon, even unto the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. He spake also of beasts, and of fowl, and of creeping things, and of fishes. So Solomon, these are all different fields now, right? You have like trees, and the hyssop spring out of the wall, right? All the different plant life, that's called botany now. All of this is biology. Speaking of beasts, that's like a zoologist. All right, verse 34. And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon from all kings of the earth, which had heard of his wisdom. Right, that's where you get the story of the Queen of Sheba from. All right, that's later on, but it's the same situation. All right. I may want to touch on 5, maybe not. No, 5 we'll hold off on. And actually building of the temple, we'll hold off on that. All right. Because here's what you get building into the temple. And we won't even touch too much on building of the temple, just the fact that it does happen. All right. Yeah. So we're gonna end it there, and next week we're gonna pick up with a little bit more on this, but more on the covenant and the I suppose the exploits, the travels of the Israelites and Phoenicians. All right, the Israelite-Phoenician connection. That's what we're going to talk about next week. So with that, hope y'all learned something. I say shalom. Most High in Christ bless.